Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're carrying on with our normal for 2020 business reactions. My name's Tom Caulfield, partner at Arnold's Keys in the agricultural department. My colleague Mark Mayhew with me, fellow partner in the commercial team. And very pleased to say that we've got Andrew Savage with us today, who's Executive Director of Development at Broadland Housing Association. Andrew, thanks for joining us. Could you just, first of all, just tell us, a little bit about yourselves, a little bit about Broadland Housing Association, what everyone's up to at the moment, please?
I certainly can, and thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mark, for inviting me. Broadland Housing Association, based in Norwich, but has offices right across Norfolk. We're a housing association in the affordable housing sector. We operate we're a real multidisciplinary organisation, really. So seeing all sorts of things going on at the moment. So we have housing management side, repairs and maintenance side in-house. We have gardeners, cleaners, right through to our development team that's building new houses. Our stock is about just over 5,300 now in Norfolk. So we're seen as a sort of a medium-sized housing association, and we're a traditional housing association. So we haven't come out of we're the largest traditional in Norfolk. We haven't come out of a local authority stock transfer. So we were started in 1963 by some Norwich businessmen trying to actually fill the intermediate markets. So these are the markets where people couldn't get on the social housing or council housing at the time, and couldn't actually be able to purchase or rent their own house either on the open market. So it's interesting how the world goes around at the moment. That's how we started in 63 and built and bought, as we say, everything that we own now. And that is right across from gypsy and traveller sites we own all the way through to housing with care, sheltered housing, homeless hostels, right through to our rented stock, shared ownership, and now, of course, open market sales as well over the past 3 years.
I mean, if I take you back to sort of March 23rd and sort of lockdown, sort of talking sort of the range of your sort of businesses, from your maintenance to your development to actually people moving in. I mean, it must have been quite a sort of, quite a huge sort of task to sort of overcome and deal with it.
You unravel that lot. Yeah, absolutely. Because every part of the business got affected in a different way.
Yes.
But of course, we're a people-centered business. That's what we are. And of course, March 23rd affected people. Yes. And so it basically affected every part of the business. So I can still remember the director's call at 9:00 that night. There wasn't too much wine drunk, of course, but actually that was the first stage of actually what document do we send out to the staff team, and actually revising plans that we sort of already had in place, which is quite interesting. So we didn't sort of shut up shop on March the 23rd. We'd actually moved home a week and a half earlier.
Okay.
So that was a little bit different approach, I think. So we were some way ahead. We weren't fully ahead because you didn't quite know what was going to happen, but you had a good idea that there was going to be something pretty serious happening here.
Was that split teams sort of in the run up to sort of the 23rd, or would you sort of move majority sort of back?
Yeah, we've been very lucky. I mean, Teams has been the buzzword, hasn't it, for the last whatever months. I know we're on Zoom today, but Teams has been the buzzword. We were very lucky where we had a very clever chap in our IT team that went, we need to be on Microsoft Teams 2.5 years ago. And so we actually moved the whole thing onto it, including our filing systems.
Okay.
So actually, we were way ahead. Thank God. It was luck or judgment. But this guy, we keep saying thank you to him, to be honest with you, because it moved the whole organisation. So out of 230 of us, 237 of us, something like that, at the time, we had 131 move straight to home, and the offices were shut a week and a half beforehand, and we were ready basically at home, waiting for that time slot when Mr. Johnson went, it's on shutdown. So yeah, I think a bit of judgment there many years ago, saying yes, we need to invest in our digital side, but a little bit of luck that it actually all worked really well. So it's good.
And Andrew, has Broadland Housing Association needed to make use of the government's furlough scheme, or is it a case of quite frankly, with such the scale of the business and the level of the housing stock and things to do, that just didn't even be a thought.
It was a thought because you had to go through that process of actually saying yes or no, are we going to do it? But we didn't. So what we did do, we had a few apprentices we had to furlough because of joint. They had to be with somebody, if that makes sense, on the trades.
Yeah.
But actually, that wasn't to do with claiming furlough money. So we didn't claim a penny. No.
I see your Canary Key sort of scheme currently under construction is sort of progressing. I mean, in terms of building contractors, were there other sites where sort of construction sort of slowed, stopped, or is it sort of managed to sort of keep going?
We had everything shut. So I think at the time, I'm just trying to remember. Remember, we got there's two sides of new development for us. One is our own stuff, Mark. So we're buying land, planning, constructing, and selling, or renting, or whatever we're doing with that at the end of it. And the other one, we're buying off house builders as well. So we're buying off a lot of local house builders in Norfolk, their Section 106 requirements on affordable housing. So a lot of those guys, it was quite interesting. We had a real mix of stopping and starting. So I think materials was a big issue at the start, and a sort of a not knowing by subcontractors as well, really what to do. I think that was the crucial of it, really. But I think actually, right from Canary Key, right all the way down, we were back on site by probably the first week of May. And we were probably fully. Some of it went on by the end of April, to be honest with you. But I think we were sort of probably fully up and running by the first week of May again. So we did have a little bit of a slot that sort of stopped. So in terms of construction, and people ask about materials and things, it was the specialised materials that we had a problem with. So if you had a certain fire, it's quite boring this, but if you had a certain fire-rated plasterboard we needed and it came from Germany, that was the issue. It wasn't bricks and things like that. We didn't have any issues there, which was good, which is really, really good. We had one of our sites that near enough kept going all the way through because we were coming to the end of it, so actually we could, once we worked out all the social distancing and all the other compliance documents that kept coming out of government, once we'd actually reviewed all of them every day while everyone released another one the next day, once we'd done that, it was pretty straightforward.
And Andrew, sorry.
No, go for it, Tom. Go on.
If I may, I'd heard a bit about issues with people getting materials and things, lockdown and coming out of lockdown and things as well. And I've also heard about costs for certain materials skyrocketing because of the shortfall. Have you seen that come through and impact on yourselves?
We haven't seen it. We were very lucky on the repairs and maintenance side. My fellow director Louise Archer had actually bought in. We have a warehouse out south of Norwich, so we'd actually bought in stuff. So we had stocks anyway in for repairs and maintenance. So we'd gone to emergency repairs only. So that was pretty good. So we had no impact then, and by the time we came out of it, we've just kept those stocks going. So we haven't seen on the construction side. That's an interesting question, really. I'm not quite sure if they're coming through or not, really. I think a lot of stocks, because everybody stopped buying, all of a sudden there was yards full of stock. So, I do wonder, actually, we've got more of a challenge over this winter and coming into what's ever going to happen in January. I think that's probably more of a challenge than actually the COVID materials at the moment. I think we've got other things on the horizon that might just do that a little bit more damage, I think.
Your use of MS Teams and sort of forward planning in terms of stocks is sort of probably a very positive thing for your business. Anything else sort of positive that's sort of come out of what we've been through over the last 6 months?
Just people, Mark. It's just been fantastic, to see the staff team. It's probably, a lot of businesses will say it's probably been the finest hour in some respects because, they've absolutely come together. We put more cleaning regimes in. I mean, that was a big thing for us to, the sheltered housing schemes, communal areas, and our cleaning teams, they needed help. So we helped them, and so Amazing. People went to 7 days a week, to just make sure everyone was safe, and that's phenomenal. We had kitchen fitters cleaning communal areas and shelter housing schemes, and with smiles on their faces, and absolutely brilliant. Our gardeners kept going all the way through, because actually you look out your window, what looks great is a garden that actually cheers you up, so that sort of mental health type thing. We got early on, people said, why are you still working out there? Well, there was a reason for it, because we wanted people to smile, It's bad times. So there's all that sort of stuff that it's just been amazing, really. And so I think the business coming together as it has in all its different functions, because it is quite a complex, people look at housing association and think it's easy. It's quite a complicated, complex business when you try and piece it back together again. And it's just wonderful. Yeah, really good to see, Mark. Really, really good to see.
One question I have is, in light of the crisis, and you've obviously already touched on, a few changes and things that you've put in place, but does it make you think really quite differently about future business planning and where you're going to go, or actually are you sort of just carrying on, with sort of, the original aims and objectives?
I think always the values and the aims and objectives of the business will always be there. We are there fundamentally providing housing for people to try and make homes out of, right across Norfolk and North Suffolk. That's fundamentally the business. Those values or cause objectives, whatever, will not change, and hopefully they won't change. And at the moment, we're doing an awful lot of work in the rough sleeping sector at the moment, because you've seen what's happened. It's all well and good taking loads of people off the streets when they come back on again. Hotels do suddenly start to reopen again. It's not the answer. So we sort of move into, so we will not lose any of those core values that the business has. How's it made us change? Well, you've got office space. You've got to start thinking about, we have all those other business issues that other people, I'm sure, are running through their heads. Why do we need this sitting here, and paying for it? That all those fundamental bits. How we our mileage has dropped. Our commuting mileage has dropped. I think I think we worked out it was just under 300,000 commuting miles. In the space of. It was huge difference, and you can imagine our vans are crisscrossing across Norfolk. As you start to say, well, okay, have we got this right or not? All that sort of stuff. Is that sort of business, the business infrastructure stuff. Like any other business has got, is probably where we'd be. But cause and ambitions, no, we've still got to build housing. We're still short of it. We're still short of rented housing in Norfolk. It's getting harder and harder to build affordable and social rented housing here. So we've still got that fundamental, that core of us. We're still for every need that we possibly is in Norfolk, and that need is getting, well, you can imagine at the moment that need is getting more and more and more. So, yeah.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge?
I think people probably actually putting the headphones down, probably looking at a screen, Mark, actually probably. For me, you bounce from one screen to another screen, don't you? And that's quite tiring, actually. I'm getting old as well, Mark, so it gets quite tiring. Biggest challenge is to keep, probably, even though on one hand you've got a team really putting together, is making sure that we don't lose those team members through the cracks that aren't actually that are feeling it, that it's isolating. It's that's probably one of the biggest things, is to make sure that actually the team that you think is okay, and that's quite difficult, I think. Inducting new members of the team into Broadland, hiring, is all that stuff that we've never had to, how do we do that? How do you do that now?
Virtually, how do you do? Yes,
how do you do it to make people feel comfortable and people feel welcome?
Yeah,
and I'm sure international companies have been doing that for years, spanning the globe. But here in Norfolk, we haven't had to. We can actually get to King's Lynn, but we can't get there. We've got it's that sort of stuff, and then making sure all our tenants out there, all the people that do rely on us a little bit, are okay. So it's dealing with all that social stuff that is falling out of the back of COVID. You talk about furlough. It hasn't completely finished yet, but once it does, and it is doing, that's impacts to Norfolk. You keep seeing the redundancies and all the other bits. So, funny enough, that impacts on people where they're living because they've got to pay their rent somehow. So it's or pay their mortgage. So that's going to become more difficult, I think, as well over the time. So it's making sure that we're providing the service. Our tenancy support team are amazing. So it's trying to provide that service, I suppose, and
yes,
sure that's going. Yeah.
Have you still got what sort of percentage of your staff are actually in sort of office premises at this moment in time?
Boris, of course, has said work from home again, hasn't he? Really,
yes.
That's what he said.
Yes, hence, Tom and I are in a different environment.
So what a question, Tom? What a question. Boris has said work from home. So we are. We've got offices open. That took a long time to get those to work out how to do that. And when you've got 13,500 square foot in the middle of Norwich with 23 people in it, that sort of brings it home, doesn't it? Really?
Yes.
I mean, I went in the office on Monday in the football ground, and there was me. So that just shows you we've still got 131 supposedly at home. Yep. So
okay.
Yeah. We'll do for the foreseeable future, Mark.
Yeah. And Andrew, you touched on obviously Teams already, and we're on Zoom today and things like that. Clearly, the Housing Association has a lot of people to keep in contact with.
Yep.
And are you able to just give any insights into sort of how you've managed to do that, both with perhaps your tenants and with the staff and the team?
Yeah. So we've got all your usual. All your usual communication tools that anybody would have, so immediately, you're on Skype for Business anyway. So all your 01603 numbers or wherever it is are coming straight in. Customer services at home, and that's working virtually pretty well. So that's really good. We're calling out to residents as well all the way through COVID. So we had a lot of helping calls going on. We engaged with all the local authorities in the county. Make sure food deliveries and all that sort of stuff, because we had vans that could move. So, but there is pretty good networks in Norfolk already, and we felt sort of, that was actually very, very strong part of Norfolk's recovery. I think the amount of people that helped in that period is incredible. So we did all that. We came together with a lot of the other housing associations as well to compare notes, make sure that we're doing everything okay. So, it's not a competitive sector. We do talk to each other, and actually, that was a really good thing that's come out of it. There was a lot of work on the homeless side, as I've said, and of course a lot of work on the care side as well. So working with our partners at North Care and Norfolk County Council with all our housing with care schemes and all that sort of stuff, that. So a lot of communication in terms of conversation, but to be honest with you, we had it anyway.
Yes.
And actually we were running those systems anyway. We have an online repair system, where tenants can actually, if they're on shifts, they can actually just type in their repair when they get home at 11 o'clock at night off the shift. Whatever it is, all those various communication systems are there.
With the government's sort of build, is that sort of going to be advantageous for you? And sort of, is the funding available to sort of capitalise on the sort of the big push for build and housing?
Yeah, there is funding available. The new funding program's just come out. Yes. There's some changes in there, Mark, which is probably a longer conversation, which I'm not quite sure about. Okay. There's a big emphasis on buying your house now, but of course in Norfolk, if you look at the need where it is rented, that's where the big need is, the underlying local need, and so that's interesting to sort of try and work through to make sure that we can still build rented housing. It's not getting any easier. There's a big gap between what your mortgage can do on your house, if that makes sense, for us to buy, to build one, and what rented income we get. It is affordable house, so that gap, that subsidy gap, is getting wider. And when you talk about material costs going up, it then goes wider again. And we all know land values haven't sort of really done an awful lot here, so you can't rely on that to drop. Do you know what I mean? So
Yes.
but the model's difficult, and any development director would say that. There's grant money out for rough sleeping, and all sorts of things in there. So we've been able to access that. So we're working with Kings Lynn, Norwich and Great Yarmouth at the moment, quite successfully on trying to make sure the winter's okay. So we've capitalised on that sort of grant and brought that into Norfolk. And we're still, I've not stopped buying land through this crisis as well. Pandemic. So we've got confidence in Norfolk. We've got to keep going, and we've got to keep building houses for local people. So we've seen a massive surge in open market sales. People saying the market recovery, and most house builders will say Norfolk has been a very good summer. Thanks for that, because it did shut down and stop. The ability to transact just disappeared. I mean, I think most businesses would say it was that ability to transact was just awful. Just couldn't get it going.
No.
So that's really good. So, but we need those open market sales now to help fund that's purely there. We don't necessarily want to do them. What we want to do is produce affordable housing, but we're doing it, and hopefully we're doing it properly. So. I think with some of the schemes around Norfolk, people are seeing that. So it's when we do it, we have to do it properly. So
well, it sort of sounds, with your sort of embracement of sort of technology and IT early on and everything, and your sort of staff that have sort of all hands to the pump and helped out. It sounds as though you're sort of in a strong position, and sort of actually looking forward and positive for the next sort of 6-9 months, and very positive and great news for Norfolk and Broadland Housing Association delivering these houses. So it's very positive to come out of the situation. And thank you very much for joining us today, Andrew. It's been good to catch up with you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, both of you.